Welcome to the Elaborators. Producer Simon here. It's episode 40. That's exciting. It seems like a milestone. It's not episode 50, but hey, it's got a 0 at the end, which makes it sound important. So it's episode 40, but it is also a bittersweet episode because it's the last for somebody. Nothing sinister, but it will be the end of someone. On the podcast.
I will end you
today. And that person is Pastor Justin is bidding adieu from
farewell.
WBC. A new chapter is beginning and a current chapter is ending, both in the church and the podcast. So
am I not allowed back on the podcast?
No, I was going to say when
No.
when he gets rich and famous, we'll have him back in.
No, I'm riding your coattails. You've got to get I've been very clear with you people. You get rich and famous, and then I say I knew them before they were rich and famous.
Well, that's up to everybody to make us rich and famous.
Okay,
So-
somebody make Simon and Stan's.
If you want Pastor
that was
Justin
hard to
back
say.
on the podcast, you have to
Make
us
Simon and
famous.
Stan famous.
Hit like, share, give it to
Yeah.
your friends right now. Right?
He only sits on podcasts with 1,000 views.
Subscribe.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, I want to know the word subscribe. The word hit like and subscribe. There'd be some sort of the language development of that over the last 10 years. We never used to say that.
Oh, well, I think actually you did.
You just asked people to like you.
Do you remember the CD clubs? Where
yeah, okay.
you get like a dozen for a penny or something, or I don't know what it was here.
Wow.
And then they would send you one every month and charge you $487 for it, right? For the rest of your life.
Do you think
that was a subscription?
Clever.
Do you think
Yeah.
the paper boys on the street were waving?
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the news.
Hit like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And also write a check and sign it, and please put some details on the back so we can prove it's your check.
Yep. And I'll tell
Lots
you the
of check.
headline, but you have to pay me before I give you the rest. Like that's the same
The
thing.
original
right?
clickbait.
Yeah, all the paywalls.
I think it's really cute that Simon's acting like he's all that old.
Yeah,
Remembers that
yep.
stuff, you know.
Oh, that's Simo.
He,
He's not-
he
he's
actually
not-
had a birthday this week, so
I did
Yeah.
have a birthday this week.
Oh, congratulations. What are you,
Thanks.
45 now or what?
I'm going to give myself applause.
You need to turn the applause up. That applause. There we go.
There it is. Yeah, thanks everyone. That's enough
Happy
of that.
birthday to you. What did you turn?
hip hip.
I turned 38.
Oh, I thought you turned 39.
Well, you can
Okay,
take his
you've been claiming 38 for about 6 months then.
Have I?
Yeah.
It's all a blur, right?
When we
in the
talk
middle?
about how old you are, 38.
No, well then,
yeah.
no. You've officially stepped up now.
When am I allowed to midlife crisis?
No, you can start. It's okay.
start.
But what I'm saying is, the fact is, you are now at that age where you're checking your ID to check what age you are.
Yep.
So
Trying to do the maths in my
that's
head.
good. You're like, I was year 12 was, and then my child is X amount old, and now, but that doesn't help me anyway because
And the 90s were only 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
not 30.
Bring back the 90s. Anyway, but
Now,
we've been
people
talking
are starting to wonder right now, what is this about?
This is
Why am I
about-
tuned in here?
This is about friendships and relationships and walking beside one another, because one of the things I realized I've been, I don't even know how to calculate it, but I've been in church life my whole life. I've been on church staff, multiple staffs for around 20 years. And so my whole life has been spent trying to help people walk alongside one another, because that's the whole thing that Jesus taught, the discipleship, go into all the world and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's a great commission. But when I look around, I always ask myself, who's walked beside me? And the reason I ask that all the time is because, we know the stats around loneliness, we know the stats around people feeling like they are doing life by themselves. We're more connected than ever, but more disconnected than ever. All of those kind of things that we would at least anecdotally agree with, if not just look into the social science and see that there's a fair bit of proof around that. But the reason that I look over the last 20 years of what I've done for a job and see this thing repeating itself over and over. And I think I just want to, I guess, expand a little on the people that have walked alongside me and the people I've walked alongside, because I think it does two things when we stop and reflect on that. It reminds us that we've never done it alone, even when we've been completely alone and in those
Jesus
in those
has always been there,
valleys, right? Yeah. But there's usually someone there that. Anyway, I'll circle back to that because that's an important thought. But we have also helped others not feel alone as well. And I think it always feels it's a slightly different feeling when you're the helper or the one that needs the help. When you're the helper, it's kind of like, I've got a job to do, and that's important, and I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep helping this person. When you're the one that needs the help, that's where the loneliness and the self-doubt and the self-deprecation kicks in when you think, I'm not worthy of asking for help. I'm not worthy of having someone help. And when I look at WBC and the construction of what it is we're trying to do, we hold Sunday gatherings. And Sunday gatherings are about that focus of the saints bringing their worship to God. And the whole idea of that is to be a catalyst to get other things done. And so we look at the meal that we provide on a Thursday night. I was there just last week. It was beautiful. We look at the way we do, life groups together, playgroup, all of the things that we've talked about over the time. And to me, it's a constant reminder of the gospel is something that not only says go, but go alongside somebody with that. And so I just thought it'd be interesting to think, because I'm sure both of you, who should I throw to first? I'm just this is like sitting around the quiz table at school and you're waiting for the teacher to point to someone.
Right.
Right. So who do I point to? Who's looking the most nervous here? Who's looking? Simon's gaze has been averted. So Simon.
Gotcha.
Who was it that walked alongside you in your childhood, do you reckon? Because your faith journey did start in your childhood, didn't it?
It did. Who was walking alongside me in my childhood, other than my parents, who were very supportive people?
I was going to say, they're pretty
I say
important.
other than because I guess for me it's an obvious, but it's not for everybody.
Not for everybody, no.
So I would answer definitely.
Yeah.
Parents, I had some siblings, but they were much older than me. The gap was quite large. So for a lot of my...
So you were an afterthought.
Oh. Hang on, now I need a cuddle. Hang on. That's all right. You're not an afterthought.
Stan's
You're
now
special. You're special.
Stan's no longer on my journey with me list.
Yeah, I don't know why you feel so alone.
Well, I've talked to your parents. I know the story.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. All fun and games, yeah.
But God thought of you from the beginning.
Oh,
Absolutely.
come on,
The creation
Pastor.
of time.
Come on, Pastor.
God's the answer.
There you
He went there.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But so for much of my tweens and teens, a lot of my siblings have moved out.
Yeah.
So it was me and my folks.
Yeah.
And then just the school friends, really.
But that's the point, isn't it? Sometimes we go, the formation of you is right in front of you most of the time. And a lot of us, when we're thinking about who's going to walk alongside, and in the 90s, it was a big deal. I remember John Maxwell would get up there and he'd say, you need somebody really talented to come and mentor you. So you go and it worked for some people. But, the idea at the time, as I remember, I was maybe 14, 15 listening to these lectures, and he'd say, go and find the person you want to be like, and then ask them to mentor you. And if they won't mentor you, go and shout them a lunch and spend time with them, whatever.
Bribe them.
Yeah, sort of thing, I guess. And I reckon I tried that a couple of times in my local, context. And it always felt forced. It felt awkward. It felt strange to say, hey, I've never met you before. You should like me and lead me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my observation has always been, it's actually to me anyway, forgive me if this disagrees with your leadership context, but there's people right beside you all of the time. You just got to open your eyes and see. So mum and dad, being as strong as they are, we've talked about your folks before, migrating to Australia and all the other things that they had to do. You were a prized possession, prized child, and they put everything into you. And I think I know them well. They're beautiful people. They've given you the tools you need, right? Yeah.
Appears that way.
So far,
well, as in, you don't see it when you're in it, do you?
No, that's my point. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're
Stan's
Ralph
turn.
Stanley.
Hey,
Richie.
hey.
Brother Ralph Stanley Ritchie.
Oh, my
on
goodness.
the microphone. Hey, it's the last episode for me. I'm just going to say stuff.
He's burning it all on the way out.
Oh, wow.
Give me a match.
We'll have a new set next week.
That needs to be edited.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So looking back, because
no.
your childhood was an entirely different experience to
It
Simon's.
was a whole lot longer ago.
A whole lot longer ago. Yeah. It was in
Yeah.
the 60s, wasn't it?
I was born in the 60s.
Oh, come on.
The late 60s, 67. Yeah.
You came out jiving.
But no, it was, honestly, it would be parents, it'd be aunties, uncles, cousins. That's about it. Into the teenage years, school friends and stuff. But I honestly would suggest that a lot of it was not positive. I had an auntie and an uncle that I do have fond memories of and stuff. And actually, I'm going to go see them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, other than that was it was I'd say challenging. As I look back, I didn't have necessarily great role models, and as I selected friends growing up and everything, that wasn't necessarily positively influencing, inspiring either.
Yeah.
So
I guess the point is that people walking alongside us is happening, whether
Yes.
it's observing it or not. And that's why we talk about positive and negative influences. And the family one you have no control over.
right.
Yours not so good, yours good, shaped you differently, changes who you are as a leader now. So when you...
And I should say, as I think even right now, there were people probably that were trying that I didn't even realize.
Right.
You know?
And they're the ones I'm actually interested in.
Yeah,
Looking back, knowing what you know now as a leader, and you've tried to help others as well.
Oh my goodness!
Right? We've all done it. We've tried to help, and you're sitting in that space going, "I'm trying to help you. How do you not see that I'm trying to help you?" Have you ever gone that full circle back and gone, actually, that person was...
Just now while we were talking.
Wow, okay, awesome.
That just popped in my head.
Yeah.
And, probably have another couple of visits I need to do while I'm in the States. So,
Awesome.
So yeah.
That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
So,
Report on that when you get back.
yeah.
Who'd you visit and how'd it go? Because I think sometimes we think of it as, the person that's been there for a very, very long time, the wise person in your corner for the whole time. And a lot of the times I think of interactions I had on things like a music camp where I met the famous conductor, and they were there for 3 days. And I was amazed that they were talking to me.
Wow.
And amazed that I got to play in that orchestra or whatever it was. And that was just it.
Because everybody's blowing their own horn there, right?
Hey, where's the... yeah. He's missed the sound effect. No.
man.
Got on the trombone. But yeah, does that trigger anything for you guys? Those momentary things?
Momentary alongsiders.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't. Yes-ish.
What about in your design world? Was there somebody that inspired you and
You know,
led you that way?
I've never been a very designery designer. sounds
You're an
sounds
out of
funny.
the box designer.
It sounds fun. Oh no, mostly like I've never had like a top five favorite designers or a list of this, following that kind of thing. I just kind of like designing.
Yeah.
But certainly some in terms of the short term, I guess if you call 2 years short term, we had a few over in the US
Of course, that
When
was
we were in the
massively
US. Yeah,
formative for you
'cause-
and Beck, for you and your wife.
because we had to go over
Yeah.
there and just immediately rely on the people that we knew
Yeah.
that welcomed us in. And,
Yeah.
we went and got jobs with this place and had hardly ever met anybody, but they trusted us and we trusted
That's a
them.
much different experience because you walk into a space and you just have to say, please help, or please come over for dinner so we can meet, or...
Yeah. And I remember pretty distinctly, maybe 3 weeks in, maybe, if that, 2 weeks in, at a petrol station, pulled up, and we got given the car for starters.
Wow.
My seatbelt got stuck in the, like the old car. It was an old Camry. It had the lever that moves the seat backwards.
Yeah.
My seatbelt had slipped in
To
the
that.
little gap.
Wow.
So I pulled in at the petrol station and was just waiting at the car behind me and kind of went to get my wallet out of my pocket and put pressure on the seat, and it's gone backwards.
Oh!
And I've bumped into, car's still on. So I'm sitting there with the brakes on, right, waiting for the next person.
Yeah.
I've bumped into the car in front.
Oh, no.
And so then I'm getting out of the car. Oh. I've got an Australian license, no phone number in America.
Tourists.
I didn't yet have an address because I was staying at somebody's house. So how do you do an
How
accent?
did you
you
get through
swap
border?
details,
How
yeah.
did you get through border security?
And so I had to give details. And for starters, this person was great. So
Yeah.
short story part of that, they were very flexible and we sorted it
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But I went back to Beck, it was just around the corner. I cried. I was just
wow.
it was so much 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
I had no identity
Wow.
at that point.
Yeah.
And people bent over backwards to help us. So the boss at the work, he took me down to the bank and said put him under our name and here's this, and I know the bank person, so just get him by. Don't fill in this field yet.
Wow.
We'll get through it. And we got through it. And we knew that family. That was the executive pastor of the church at the time.
Yeah.
And they took us in. We were the Thanksgiving dinner
Yeah.
family, the whole bit. So from an American side alongside us.
Yeah.
So that was a long story, but anyway.
No, it's a beautiful story because it speaks to until you need to rely on people, you rely on yourself and you tell yourself, I did this and I made this. And certainly one of the biggest lessons in your faith journey is you did none of this. You didn't deserve any of this. You didn't deserve the grace and the mercy and the forgiveness that you have. And so walk with a different sense of service and a different sense of giving. You must have done that a bunch of times moving back and forth from countries and
Sending
people out.
Too many stories.
Yeah.
And you mentioned sending people all around the world.
Yeah.
We've traveled all around the world and things. And you do find that is when you're in a new place, different experiences in different places with different people.
Of course, yeah.
So some make sure that you have everything you need and all the direction you can. There are a couple times where I traveled around the world and I would land somewhere and there would be nothing, no help or anything. And that's when you're feeling desperate. That's when you're thinking you're all alone and you're thinking, hey. I know you're there, but
you sent me. What am I doing here? Yeah.
So
I think the landing places, and this is where I look at this. The parallel for me is in Luke chapter 5, which is you were saying is one of your favorite chapters, which is the calling of the disciples. There's this beautiful moment where Jesus says to Simon Peter, who he doesn't know yet, do you mind if I borrow your boat? Because we just need to push out into the shallows a bit so I can teach. And you see this kind of moment. I try and put myself in the place of those people and think, if I'm Simon, I've probably heard of Jesus. I've probably heard a few things. By that stage, he was the kid that had reasoned with the priests in the temple when he was 12, and he was the guy who'd apparently changed water to wine. That must have filtered down at this point. So he's got a little bit of fame. He's kind of a little bit Insta famous at this point. So maybe Simon knows who the teacher is, and he says, "Yes, you can hop in my boat that isn't being used for its purpose right now. So use that boat for something else." And he steps out and he pushes out and he gives a teaching. And this flows into the calling of the first disciples.
Yeah. But then
jump.
I love this part of the story because that part was easy, I reckon. That was
you reckon? Yeah, okay.
That was simple obedience. All right. But then Jesus said, "Now let's go fishing.
Let's go a little further."
If I'm Simon, I'm thinking, hang on a minute. Now you're meddling in my area.
Right.
That's my gig. I know the fishing. You stick to teaching. You're really good at that.
It's a phenomenal picture, and it's such a. I mean, obviously, the obvious allegorical elements should just jump out at us of that whole idea of, I want to teach you something in the shallows, but you're not going to learn anything until you're in the deep. Yeah. And so there's this moment where not only has he got his own business, he's got his own boat, he's probably got some employees or a family structure or whatever,
family business,
and he's saying to a teacher, which again would have been revered in the culture a little, but still he's the new kid on the block who's don't know much about, and he said yes to Jesus, and so the amount of times your yes is followed by, and could you obey the next command or the next question is huge. And so I've had those experiences too of landing in places and being welcomed with warm muffins and the things and here's your house and here's somewhere to stay and here's a car and all the things. And then the other ones where you land at the airport or the gig wherever it was and you get out of the car or the plane, you think
40 minutes down the road.
Yeah. Here's the kicker. For some things right now that feel easy to you, they're only easy because you've done lots of hard things already.
Yeah. No, I was talking to Deanna about that just this week. There was something that I did. I can't remember what it was now. And it was just like so amazing for the person of the group of people that I was ministering to. It was just like, that didn't take anything, from me. But it's not because it's necessarily that easy. It's just because I've done that so many times.
Yep.
Hey, if I can go back to Luke 5 thing. You were talking about Peter. And you said he would have known about Jesus, and because Jesus was a little bit famous and stuff, and so he would have said yes, and then Jesus got in the boat and everything. My mind went to when I came here a little over 6 years ago. And I had no associates, and I knew this guy who was a little bit of a rock star. I knew him a little bit, kind of infamous, or Insta famous, not infamous. He's become infamous since then.
Exactly. So, get the whole package.
But no, I rang the dude, and there was this thing that I had read about. From a leadership guru and all this stuff, pastor, and he said, "Don't be someone's no for them." So I knew this Insta famous guy, and my natural reaction would have been, I needed some associates here, and my natural thing would have been, he's not going to be interested. He's a rock star. Why would he want to come do this? But Justin was at another church, and effectively it took me 9 months, but I poached him to
it's a
birthing
come process.
But you were talking about when Peter then got in the boat, and then I thought about when Jesus told him, "Now let's go fishing," and Peter would have said, hang on a minute,
Yeah.
now you're overstepping. And you came into this place,
Yeah.
and it was great. It was wonderful. But pretty soon on, you started saying, "Oh, what about this? What about we do this? What about?" And you made me nervous. You may not know that.
I know that.
You made me nervous at times, but we've done a thing here and transformed this place. It's really amazing today. But it's kind of that same story where, hey, Justin, you want to come out with me in the boat a little bit?
And I think it's a beautiful picture because it's what we actually do for one another. There are plenty of things I've done here that, they might have sounded like my idea or whatever, but they're someone else's
you
idea.
pinched them, you ripped them.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no new ideas. There really isn't. And there's so many things where, and the three of us have worked very closely on lots of things, including not the least of which was pandemic. And trying to figure out ways, and we would come in to work tired and frustrated, and
sometimes we would come in.
The five of us that were allowed in the room, and sometimes we all, of course, learnt skills that we didn't have before, because all of a sudden we didn't have the people around us that had those skills. So the amount of things I learnt about the sound desk or a video editor or how to make a service flow when there was no flow, filming.
Preach into an empty room.
Preach into an empty room.
or in your home office / bedroom. And actually, I was just I've got this 5-year journal where on the top line you've got 5 years ago, and and I'm in my 5th year.
Wow!
And I was so you can read back what was happening last year or 2 years ago.
Wonderful!
And just today, I read that I had to re-preach my sermon in the bedroom to the camera because Simon told me the audio wasn't good enough with the first run that I'd done.
Right.
And now that first run was probably 2 or 3 runs that I'd done before I sent him one. And then, and this was like on a Saturday, I think it was.
Well, what is it? April 5. So it was probably the second one.
Yeah. But it was like the day before. You got to run this thing on Sunday. And I've already done all this work and everything. And it said that I had to work with Simon and Justin Clark and my son Garrett, who all those
that's feeling really familiar. I think I remember that.
They were all coming over to the house or calling, and
I remember.
They may or may not have been supposed to come to the house. I don't know, but that was work, so we had to do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, to get the sound working good enough for that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, but you've just mentioned
people walking
in that
alongside.
story. In that story, you've mentioned 3 people that walked beside you simply to get audio so that a crowd could hear the word. If that's not, I mean, that is the picture. The picture is that people will walk beside you, especially if you ask. Especially if you ask. And part of again, going back to that loneliness thing is because we all have this about us. We hate to ask. We hate to ask. And sometimes that's ego, sometimes that's politeness, sometimes that's embarrassment, sometimes it's just anxiety, sometimes it's a lot of I should know how to do this, but I don't. And I think that if there's one thing that Jesus taught us a lot of, it was come follow, come hang out, walk alongside. Don't do this by yourself. You shouldn't do this by yourself. By the way, even if you're a prophet stuck in a cave saying everything's terrible, I'll still come and look after you there. All those kinds of pictures. And the pandemic was, it's one of those things we look back on now and it's just a distant memory now. And we think, oh, well, we got through it. But to try and remember the feeling, and that's why I love that journal idea.
We got through that together. And there was a few other people involved, but honestly, the 3 of us, we did some life during that season. And got to know each other better than we wanted to probably.
Well, I think the point that I come back to is the risking of relationship to grow. We had to make phone calls to each other. You had to message Stan and say, sorry, I can't use that.
Not good enough.
I know you've spent however many hours.
And now he does that with everything I do.
Now he's confident to say no.
Not good enough. Not good enough.
But that's how relationships are built. That's how trust is built. You have to risk something to grow. And so the beauty of this is I see a parallel in Luke 5, you see the calling, and in John 21, you see after Jesus is sort of beaten death and come back to life, he meets the disciples on the shore again. And it's almost like this moment where they recognize him and they dare not say because they know who he is. There's pictures earlier where they say, "Is it you, Lord?" By this point, they're like, "Yeah, no, we know this is. We know who this is. This is Jesus," and it's like he's getting ready to relaunch them back on the shore. He gives them some food. He reinstates Simon Peter at this point. He reinstates him and says, "Do you love me?" There's a very famous chapter which gives us chills every time we read it. Of he was the one that denied Jesus 3 times, and now Jesus asks him three times, "Do you love me?" There's this beautiful, beautiful moment where not only do they recognize who Jesus is, they recognize his position. He was just the teacher. He had a role, but now he has a rule. There's this beautiful moment, and he feeds them, and he charges them up, and he fills them full of grace, and literally forgives Peter on the spot, and recharges his batteries, and then sends them back out into the deep again. And every one of us is going to need time on the shore, is the point. But if you're feeling alone and if you're feeling like nobody's doing this with you, I'd encourage you to stop and think about even those little one-day moments, those half-hour moments, because you may not have someone that's walked with you for a long, long time, a best friend, the one that has the other half of your special chain that you wear around your neck,
Oh,
I'm sorry, I never gave you one of those because we're not Taylor Swift fans. But the point is, I've been involved here for 5.5 years, but the marks we've made on one another's lives
we'll be there till we're dead.
Exactly.
Some deep wounds.
Deep wounds. No, and I think if I could be serious for a moment, the thing that I'm most thankful for is that we have risked relationship with one another at times. We have risked grumpiness and even anger at times. And you said nerves, we get nervous around what's he going to ask? What are they going to ask of me, and can I handle it? But the trust that has been built over time has made beautiful outcomes, not just for us. Of course, we're proud of what we've been able to do, but what's here physically and what's happening spiritually is because we took risks with one another to build a foundation that others could trust as well. And so the fruit of that is massive. And yes, I'm finishing my tenure here as an employed person, but we're not doing it, and this is the most beautiful thing, is we're not doing it because one of us has to leave, otherwise someone's going to kill someone. Because a lot of teams do break up for that. And I'm very, very thankful to God for that part of the experience that we've been able to, risk relationship, but within certain parameters. None of us have done anything horribly damaging, hopefully. The strength that's been built through incredibly unprecedented times, to use that term for the billionth time, actually has created a trust foundation that others can launch from, and we can launch others out into the deep as well.
So Simon, when you and I had started having some interactions and stuff before Justin came along about the future, and I think I asked you, what would it take for us to have our services online, stuff like that, and then obviously we ramped all that up. But as far as you getting neck deep in this stuff, it really mostly happened after Justin came along.
Yes.
Right. Because Justin's got this walk alongside ability to, when he's walking alongside, he's grabbing you by the arms or by the neck and saying, keep on getting in here further. And I mean, and I would reflect that, that was massive for you. I think we started you out at half a day a week or something to transition our kids,
right?
And now
That's how they get you.
Now you do. He did the same thing with Deanna. Did the same thing with John Takema. But But anyway, for you though, personally, do you have a reflection on any of that or?
Oh, dearie me. Well, we had a nice little staff gathering yesterday for you, and I shared then that the way you operated and what you asked of me was very stretching in seemingly all the right ways. Because I mean, now it's outside of the personal growth. Like I am now 4 days a week, so we've gone from half a day to 4 days a week through the pandemic and things. It just kept on stacking up.
Well, you get paid for 4, you work 6. But
well, something like that. That's vocational ministry, right?
Yeah.
But so the personal growth, the the ideas that you've generated, the projects you started that you brought us alongside with and trusted me to help deliver as well.
Like a podcast.
But like a podcast. Here we are sitting in one now. But it's I think what I've loved over the last few years is you'd come up with hey, let's do a podcast. Here's some of the ways to do that.
Yeah.
And then, a few months later I'll build a room.
Yeah.
Right? And then we'll do a podcast.
Yeah.
And then I think that just rolled over and over and over. And
Yeah,
over.
we probably did that a dozen times. I don't know.
Everything from AV desks and cafes to play spaces to painting walls. So I'm hoping that either I get to come up with the ideas, which is a bit daunting, or someone is going to come up with the ideas and keep me busy.
I think you need to trust yourself with your ideas, and again, experience, you've done this for a few years now, but experience has taught me, and I know I've said it in meetings every now and again, just maybe trust me on this, we'll be okay. Now, when we're saying that as leaders, we're not actually as convinced as we sound, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot to leadership of I'm actually operating on that sense of God saying, trust me with this. Now go lead something.
So all those times you said, trust me,
No idea
we
what
really
I'm-
shouldn't have trusted
No idea what I'm
Trust
doing.
me.
Trust him, yeah. Because people, by and large, want to feel comfortable and safe. And I actually think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to want. We do not need to challenge everybody.
That's Maslow's hierarchy of
right.
and whether you're into that philosophical stuff or not. I think it's true.
Yeah. Yep. Food,
We need
shelter,
to
warm bed. Yep.
Safety.
Safety. And so if you are one of the blessed ones that has food, shelter, safety, and maybe you've got some ownership of assets and maybe you've got some other things up your sleeve as well. Stan has often preached in our church, we are already in the top 1% of the most wealthy people in the world. That doesn't mean because you live in this country you feel safe and secure, but it does mean that if you're in that space, you have somewhat of a responsibility to create things that help others find that safety as well. And so I think the morality that Jesus sort of demands of us if we follow him is to bring others alongside into that place of safety and that place of care and love and warmth and all of those wonderful things. But that takes sacrifice and that takes a
trust.
Him saying trust me.
Yeah.
If it's true that he knows every individual, if it's true that he knows every hair on the head and every breath and everything like that, then our daily step with him is to trust him that he knows not just my circumstance, but yours and the next person's, which takes the pressure off me to have to rescue everybody and save everybody. Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
There you go. Take the pressure off.
It is that, and honestly, I think I'll take that word from you to live on for a long time to come. And it's probably time that we start wrapping this thing up. So I just want to say thank you for coming here and walking alongside.
Right.
I really have been blessed by that and marked by that in positive ways.
Oh, good.
In positive ways.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think till the day I die, I will remember these years.
Wow.
And those years will have impacted and formed even who I am. And so thank you.
And that's
Appreciate
always
the
a
journey.
reciprocated thing,
Yeah.
We're changed because of one another. And again, we're only fruitful because of one another. The old fruit tree, you're a gardener. You got to have 2 fruit trees to make
I was
good
a
fruit.
gardener before I was here 4 days a week.
Yeah. Now you've given up on the fruit trees.
Yep.
But yeah, you have to have 2 trees to make good fruit, right?
So you're working with fruit trees, now it's fruit cakes, right?
Hey, there you go.
Gee.
But,
I think I just had a little picture in my head then of like, I think, you're finishing up here. I feel like for at least our church, locally, like this church, you've almost managed to come in and pull the slingshot back to a tight
picture.
to a tight space,
Yeah.
and then who knows what's going to happen after that. But
Yeah.
I think we existed and we were here. But I think you've really managed to come in and in 5 years. I don't think you didn't take a sledgehammer to the place. Like a lot of people.
Some days.
Well, yeah, literally some days a sledgehammer. But I think a lot of time it's like, you came in and you changed all this stuff. You didn't necessarily knock it down to then change it. You pulled that slingshot back. So I think that's an exciting thing for me.
It's good.
Of like, man, if we're now gonna, you're letting go.
Yeah.
And then we're just now. Who knows where you're sending us now?
And
But it's exciting.
The blessing that I want to allow everybody to take hold of is when I think of what I do, I think renovation is the word that always comes to mind. And renovation is about bringing new materials into the space, but it's also about observing what's there already and using it better, using it differently, using it with, bringing new eyes. And that's what every leader can do. You don't have to burn the sucker down, even though at times every leader has felt that. What if we just blew this up, There are so, I've talked to so many people this week, but again was reminded yesterday of one of the older ladies in our congregation who lost one of her children to an accident years and years ago, raised her granddaughter by herself. Like these incredibly strong people, that it's their faith and their connection to local church that keeps feeding that faith that has allowed them to keep doing the hard things. And they're sitting in our congregations thankful that we exist. And we should always respect and honour that.
Wow.
And we should be grateful that we get to minister to people. And that's why I think the anointing on the house at WBC is one of being a place of landing, a place of that carries that spirit of peace, that carries that spirit of kindness. And in many ways, they feel like generic terms, but I do think that is something that this house has always had. It's a safe place, and that's a very, very brave thing to do, to create, to become a safe place for people, because it's harder than people realise.
It's good.
So,
It's good. Words of wisdom.
And on that note,
on that bombshell,
that's for you, Pastor Justin. The studio audience applauds. Not for the last time.
that studio audience has been really consistent.
They are. The same guy keeps
And
yelling every time.
They're not growing.
Depends how many times I press the button.
No one's walking alongside the crowd. We got to get bigger.
Yeah.
That's
So thank you for starting the Elaborators. We'll continue it on. We'll have you back.
Yeah.
And thanks for the discussion today. That's been really.
It's been good.
That's been good. I'm going to press that button.
Love you, gents.
And we will wrap this up. Everybody online, you have to make us popular, remember?
Yeah.
So that
So I can
Justin's
ride on your
willing to come
coattails.
back at all. Otherwise, it's just, that's it. So,
So all three of you, like, share, subscribe.
yes, all 300 soon.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's it. That's it from us for this episode. And we'll be back the next time.
Next time.
We're going to dive into Revelation, I think, in the next couple of episodes. That's going to be fun.
Woo.
That's a big can of worms to open, isn't it? Revelation.
Yeah.
Anyway, bye-bye from us.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye from us, Justin. And we'll see you soon. Last dance.
Oh.